My husband betrayed me, fathered a child with a local nurse, and his devout family hid it, so I exposed them all. My name is Laura, and I'm 29 years old. I've spent the last 7 years building The Daily Grind, a little coffee shop on Main Street in Franklin, Tennessee. It's the kind of place where locals linger over lattes and tourists snap photos of the chalkboard menu. I opened it in 2018 with a $100,000 loan from First Tennessee Bank, pouring every ounce of myself into mismatched wooden tables and a vintage espresso machine I found at an auction in Nashville. The shop brings in about $220,000 a year now, which feels like a miracle in a town where every corner has a cafe. I love the smell of fresh grounds in the morning, the hum of conversation, and the way my baristas know everyone's order by heart. I met Ethan at the Franklin Farmers Market in 2017. He was 32, with sun-bleached hair and a booth selling honey from his family's farm out on Carter's Creek Pike. He had this easy laugh, and when he offered me a sample of lavender honey on a wooden stick, I couldn't stop smiling. We started dating, spending Saturdays at Arrington Vineyards or walking along the Harpeth River, talking about our dreams. I wanted a family and a bigger shop. He wanted to modernize his family's farm. 2 years later, I proposed to him under the big oak tree at Harlansdale Farm. I was nervous, fumbling with a simple gold band I'd saved $600 for, but he said yes, his eyes wet. We got married in 2020 at First Methodist Church, surrounded by 200 friends and family. The reception, with mason jar centerpieces and a local bluegrass band, cost $15,000, but it was worth every penny to see Ethan dance with my mom. We bought a 3-bedroom house on Lewisburg Pike in 2021 for $450,000. I put down $300,000 from my savings, scraped together from years of side gigs and the shop's early profits. Ethan contributed $150,000, and we took out a $200,000 mortgage, paying $1,500 a month. The house was a fixer-upper, with creaky oak floors and a wraparound porch I painted white myself. I spent $5,000 a month furnishing it, custom cabinets from a local carpenter, a leather sofa from Pottery Barn, because I wanted it to feel like ours. Ethan convinced me to buy a Ford F-150 for $60,000 last year, saying it was practical for his farm consulting gigs. I didn't mind. I thought we were building something together. We talked about kids early on. I'd sketch nursery ideas on napkins at the shop, imagining a little girl with Ethan's hazel eyes. But a year into marriage, he started saying we should wait, that the farm wasn't stable enough yet. It stung, but I trusted him. I'd catch myself staring at families in the shop, feeling this quiet ache, then push it down. Ethan was my partner, my home. I believed in us. Looking back, I wonder if I was just too busy steaming milk and balancing books to see the cracks forming. Life with Ethan felt like a rhythm I could count on. But by last spring, I started noticing things that didn't add up. He was gone more often, driving to Kentucky or Alabama for his farm consulting jobs, leaving me to run the daily grind alone. I'd be up at 5 grinding beans and prepping pastries, while he'd roll in late smelling of diesel and something sharp like cheap cologne. I told myself it was just the stress of his work, but there was this knot in my stomach I couldn't shake. I'd catch myself checking his phone when he showered, then feel guilty for doubting him. Our bank statements were another puzzle. Ethan was pulling out $2,000 in cash every month, saying it was for client dinners or travel expenses. Then there was a $3,500 charge for a farm expo at the Omni Hotel in Nashville, but when I asked, he couldn't find the receipt. I let it slide, thinking I was being paranoid. I was so busy keeping the shop afloat, paying my baristas $15 an hour, restocking coffee beans at $100 a bag, that I didn't have the energy to push. But those numbers gnawed at me, like a song stuck in my head I couldn't name. Ethan's parents, John and Mary, were a big part of our lives. John's the pastor at Franklin Community Church, a sprawling brick building off Highway 96 with 700 members. He earns about $80,000 a year, but the church leases him a shiny Lexus SUV worth $70,000, which he calls his ministry vehicle. Mary runs the women's group and spends weeks planning the Harvest Festival, Franklin's biggest fall event, with hay rides and pumpkin carving. They'd have us over for Sunday potlucks, serving fried chicken and cornbread in their dining room with floral wallpaper. Mary always hugged me tight, calling me sweetheart, but her smile felt rehearsed, like she was posing for a church bulletin. My best friend Sarah worked the morning shift at my shop. She's 28 with a quick laugh and a habit of tying her apron too tight. She'd been saving for a taco truck, dreaming of serving carnitas at festivals, but at $15 an hour, it was a slow climb. She'd talk about needing $35,000 to get started, her eyes lighting up as she sketched logos on napkins. I promised to help when I could, but the shop's margins were tight. Then there was Claire, a nurse at Williamson Medical Center. She was 27, with soft curls and a voice like honey. Everyone knew her at church, always volunteering for bake sales or hospital fundraisers. Her husband, Mike, led the men's Bible study, quoting scripture like it was his job. Claire seemed perfect, but I'd catch her watching Ethan during sermons, her gaze lingering a second too long. I brushed it off as jealousy, hating myself for even thinking it. Ethan was mine, wasn't he? Still, I started locking my office desk at the shop where I kept our bank statements, as if that could hold everything together. Last April, Sarah asked me to meet her at Puckett's Grocery after the shop closed. She'd been fidgety all day, rearranging sugar packets and avoiding my eyes. Puckett's is a Franklin staple with its checkered tablecloths and walls covered in vintage signs. We sat in a corner booth, the smell of fried okra hanging in the air. Sarah slid a USB drive across the table, her hands trembling. "You need to see this," she said, her voice low. I laughed, thinking it was a prank, maybe a funny video she'd edited of our baristas. But her face was pale, and that knot in my stomach tightened. At home, in our living room with its creaky oak floors and the quilt my mom made for our wedding, I plugged the USB into my laptop. What I saw broke me. It was a 60-page file, screenshots, photos, hotel receipts, and Ring camera footage. Ethan had been sleeping with Claire, the nurse from Williamson Medical Center, for 9 months. Claire, with her soft curls and church-bake sale smile, was pregnant. Not with her husband, Mike's baby, but Ethan's. A screenshot of their texts, dated 3 weeks ago, made my chest burn. Claire wrote, "I'm starting to show. I'll tell Mike it's his." Ethan replied, "Perfect. Laura's desperate for kids. She'll buy it if you lose the baby later." I read it again, hoping I'd misunderstood, but the words didn't change. There were receipts for $1,200 at the Hilton in Cool Springs, time-stamped when Ethan said he was at a farm expo in Chattanooga. Our Ring camera showed Claire's Honda CR-V parked in our driveway 8 times, while I was at coffee trade shows in Atlanta, each trip costing me $2,000. Photos from a Nashville bar caught them kissing, Ethan's hand on her waist. The worst was a text from Ethan. "She's clueless, always at her shop." I felt stupid, small, like the life I'd built was a house of cards. But then I got mad, not just at Ethan, but at myself for trusting him. The file also showed Ethan's parents, John and Mary, knew everything. A text from Mary to Ethan read, "Be careful, son. The church can't afford a scandal." John wrote, "Claire's mom owes us. She'll keep her quiet." Another message outlined their plan. Claire would claim the baby was Mike's, and if it came out later, they'd say she miscarried to protect Ethan. John and Mary, who'd served me peach cobbler at their potlucks and called me daughter, were orchestrating a lie. I thought of John's sermons about honesty, his voice booming in that brick church, and felt sick. Mary's hugs, her floral dresses, all felt like a mask now. I called Sarah the next day, meeting her at the shop's back office, surrounded by coffee sacks and my old recipe binders. She admitted she'd known for 3 months, piecing it together with 2 co-workers who'd seen Ethan and Claire at a bar. Claire had spread rumors that Sarah was chasing Ethan, which pushed Sarah to come clean. She wanted $35,000 for her taco truck, figuring this was her chance to start over. I didn't trust her motives, but her evidence was real. I stared at my wedding photo on the desk, Ethan's arm around me, and felt this strange mix of rage and guilt, like I should have seen it coming, like I'd failed us. I told Sarah I'd think about her offer, but deep down, I knew I couldn't stay quiet. After Sarah's USB shattered my world, I didn't cry or scream. I went quiet, like the calm before a Tennessee storm. At the daily grind, I'd grind beans, smile at customers, and nod when Ethan talked about his day. But inside, I was unraveling. Some nights, I'd sit on our porch, wrapped in that old quilt, wanting to forgive him, to believe it was a mistake. But then I'd remember those texts. She's clueless. And my hands would shake. I hated him, but I hated how much I still loved him more. That mix of rage and longing pushed me to act. I called Rachel, a divorce lawyer in Nashville, recommended by a supplier who'd been through a messy split. Her office was in a sleek building off West End Avenue, with glass walls and a coffee machine fancier than mine. At $200 an hour, she was expensive, but her calm voice steadied me. Tennessee doesn't split assets evenly, she explained. Since I'd put $300,000 into our house and owned the daily grind before marriage, Ethan had little claim. The affair and Claire's pregnancy, paternity fraud, Rachel called it, strengthened my case. I paid her $5,000 up front, pulling from the shop's savings. It felt like betraying my dream, but I needed to protect it. I checked our bank accounts and found $25,000 missing over 6 months. Hotel stays, jewelry from K Jewelers, cash withdrawals. I transferred $180,000 from our joint account to a new one at Regions Bank, leaving enough for bills so Ethan wouldn't notice. The house, now worth $650,000 thanks to Franklin's real estate boom, was my lifeline. I met a realtor, Karen, at Frothy Monkey. She sipped an oat milk latte and confirmed we could sell for a profit after the divorce. I kept $10,000 cash in a safe under my office desk, hidden behind coffee sacks, just in case I needed to leave fast. Rachel drafted divorce papers, naming John and Mary as co-conspirators for hiding the affair. Their texts about protecting the church were evidence, she said, though suing them might not hold up. I recorded Ethan's calls when he rambled about work, legal in Tennessee since only one party needs to consent. Each lie he told, about a late meeting or client dinner, made my resolve harder, like clay baking in the sun. I chose the Harvest Festival for my move. It's Franklin's biggest event, held at the church's campus on Highway 96, with hay bales and bluegrass bands. The VIP dinner afterward at John and Mary's Colonial House on Franklin Road would have 50 guests, church elders Claire, Mike, and Sarah. I hired Tom, a process server, for $100 to deliver the papers at 7 o'clock mid-dinner. Sarah agreed to film it for $35,000, her taco truck dream now my leverage. We met at Gray's on Main, splitting a plate of pimento cheese fries. Act normal, I told her, my voice steady but my hands clammy. I kept up the act at home, cooking Ethan's favorite brisket, laughing at his stories. I bought a $150 bouquet from Franklin Flower Shop for Mary's dinner table, saying it was a thank you. Each smile I faked felt like a lie I was telling myself, but it also felt good, like I was taking back control. As the festival neared, I packed a small bag, jeans, my favorite flannel, a photo of my mom, and hid it in my car. I was ready to walk away, but part of me still hoped Ethan would confess, even if I knew he wouldn't. The Harvest Festival was in full swing by noon, the church campus on Highway 96 buzzing with kids chasing hay bale mazes and the smell of kettle corn. I wore a navy sundress from Boutique on Main, its soft fabric hiding the way my hands shook. Ethan sat beside me in the sanctuary, his arm brushing mine as John preached about trust and family. I bit my lip, tasting blood to keep from laughing at the irony. After the sermon, 50 of us gathered at John and Mary's Colonial House on Franklin Road. Their dining room, with its long mahogany table and chandelier, felt like a stage. Mary fussed over my bouquet of lilies, her smile tight, while Ethan carved the turkey, joking about his knife skills. I'd planned everything with Tom, the process server, to arrive at 7 o'clock. Sarah was there, her phone tucked in her apron pocket, ready to record. Claire and Mike sat across from us, her hand resting on her barely there bump. I sipped sweet tea, the glass cold against my palm, and made small talk about the shop, my voice steady but my heart pounding. I kept glancing at the grandfather clock in the corner, its ticks louder than the chatter. At 6:55, my phone buzzed. Tom was outside. I took a deep breath, feeling both terrified and alive, like I was about to jump off a cliff. John stood to give the blessing, his voice booming when the doorbell chimed. Mary frowned, starting for the door, but John waved her down. "Probably a late guest," he said, striding out. I heard his muffled greeting, then a strained, "Laura, could you come here?" The room stilled as I stood, smoothing my dress. Ethan looked confused, his fork hovering. At the door, Tom handed Ethan a thick envelope saying, "You've been served, Mr. Thompson." He gave 2 more to John and Mary, who'd followed. "For you as well," Tom said, then left. Ethan tore open his envelope, his face paling as he read. I stepped back into the dining room, every eye on me. "It's a divorce petition," I said, my voice clear. "Ethan's been sleeping with Claire. She's pregnant with his baby, not Mike's. John and Mary helped cover it up." I pulled out my phone and played a video from Sarah's USB. Ethan and Claire kissing outside the Hilton in Cool Springs, time-stamped last March. Gasps rippled through the room. Mike grabbed Ethan's papers, scanning them, his hands shaking. "You're pregnant?" he asked Claire, his voice breaking. She stared at the table, silent. John sputtered, "This is outrageous!" But I cut him off. "Page 15, Pastor. Your text's about keeping the church's name clean." Mary clutched her pearls, tears streaming. Sarah filmed quietly, her lips twitching. Mike threw a plate of pumpkin pie, missing Ethan and hitting a vase that shattered on the floor. Guests whispered, some slipping out. I looked at Ethan, his eyes pleading, and felt a pang of pity, quickly swallowed by anger. "Happy harvest," I said. "Ethan, good luck with your new family." I walked out, past Mary's sobs and John's shouting, to my car parked under a magnolia tree. I drove to the Drury Plaza in Murfreesboro, 30 miles away, checking in for $150 a night. My phone buzzed with texts. Ethan begging, Mary crying, John threatening a lawsuit Rachel later said wouldn't hold up. I turned it off and slept, dreaming of open fields. The next day, I listed the house for $650,000, clearing $400,000 after the mortgage. I wired Sarah $35,000 and started looking at shop spaces in Chattanooga. For the first time, I felt light, like I'd shed a heavy coat. I didn't need Ethan or his family. I had myself, and that was enough.